episodes 2 and 3 of the Circle Squared aired today. It's a little side project that the NWA is doing. It's very cool. It's like it runs parallel to NWA Power, so the weeks we don't get NWA Power, we get Circle Squared. It's a version of Tough Enough, is what it is. But I like the format. I think it's better, actually. None of this stupid nonsense involving, game show bullshit like the early NXT or making people jump through weird hoops. Wrestling at its core, which is what I really like about it. The wrestlers come out, we get introduced to them, they get an opportunity to cut a promo, and behind the very famous podium, of course. And then they get in the ring and they have a match together. And we gauge the crowd's response, and then they take to social media and use that as an opportunity to discuss the wrestlers and gauge people's responses on there, and ultimately use that to choose who gets an opportunity to be on the NWA roster, I would assume full time. So this week we got 2 episodes back to back, which is nice because when there's no NWA Power for a week, you want good content. And it's nice that they gave us a good solid 45 minutes of content as opposed to just the one episode like they did last time, which is about, 18 minutes long, and then, you're gone. Which is cool, don't get me wrong, but it's nice to have a little bit more to get your teeth into. Especially as we're so used to watching wrestling in so many formats, being at least 2 hours. So this is quite nice. Don't get me wrong, though, don't go past the hour. That's what we love about NWA Power, is the hour. So, episode 2, Coly Corino versus George South is on offer. You couldn't ask for a more polar opposite ideal. So, I looked at the promos and I looked at the matches and broke them down. Obviously, these are just my opinions. And if you don't like them, that's fine. You don't have to listen to them. But I thought I'd offer them nonetheless. And I think it's quite cool. And I like the concept. And ultimately, if I'm going to review something, then I'm obviously passionate about it. And I love this concept, so kudos to the National Wrestling Alliance. I liked Coly Corino's promo. I felt that he was a little bit nervous, but I understand that because this is a big opportunity for him, probably the biggest opportunity he's had. He comes from a really rich heritage as well. Obviously, everybody knows who his dad is, Steve Corino, former ECW World Champion. I love Steve Corino. I did. He was one of my favourite wrestlers as a young kid growing up, watching ECW on Bravo in the UK. And he's got a lot about him that would suggest he's like his old man. Good look, edgy, a little bit gritty, a little bit grimy, a little bit different, a little bit grungy. And I quite like that. There's a little bit of a Kurt Cobain kind of style about that. I like that. It's a good look. He was honest about his difficulties, growing up. He's so young still. I think he's, 23 years old? That's crazy. And he's lived all this already. He's a father and gone through drug addictions and obviously being part of the business. And, his promo was okay. But you could tell, like I say, that he was nervous. On the flip side of things, you got George South, a guy who made his wrestling debut in 1982. And here's George South coming out here. Very accomplished, very aggressive. I liked his promo. I enjoyed it. What's cool about Circle Squared, is the fact that they have people watching a lot. And they had Eli Drake and Allison Kay, who were obviously going to be the interesting voices, at least as far as I'm concerned, because those are people obviously who are highly regarded in the wrestling business. Allison Kay is a wonderful talent within obviously women's wrestling, and Eli Drake is Eli Drake, one of the best mic workers, one of the most charismatic people in all of wrestling. So their opinions were obviously going to be very intriguing to me, very interesting. And yeah, George South, I liked the way he came out, I liked the way he delivered, I liked his cadence, and I really enjoyed the fact that he just outwardly said, "I'll punch your mother in the mouth to be here in the NWA." It's pretty cool. You're not going to get away with saying that in a lot of places, and ultimately I like the fact that NWA were happy to allow this sort of thing to be said, even if it didn't. Who cares? That's great. It's great stuff. Obviously with the editing process as well, I'm assuming they had no problem with that. I like that line. I thought it was funny. Just get right in people's faces. I like a good heel, and George South screams old school 1980s heel, and I like that. The match was quite good as well. I love the structure of the match, and I saw some people moaning on social media saying, he just kept going back to the claw and, oh, he's too old and Coly Corino needs the opportunity, etc. But the cool idea behind this is, hey, here's a guy who, for all intents and purposes, has had his career in George South. But they're looking to bolster their roster with different people. And yeah, Coly Corino is awesome, but so is George South. And I love the fact that they're like, yeah, no, fuck it, equal opportunities. We're going to give Coly Corino the opportunity as this young man with a great pedigree, but we're also going to give this opportunity to George South, a guy who already knows this. And I loved his promo as well. He's talking about, hey, do you know, I never got a chance to stand behind this podium once. You know, thousands of times I was in this studio, I never once got to stand behind this beautiful podium, and this is my first opportunity to do so. And he takes that first opportunity to threaten to punch people's mothers in the face. I think that's great. And I enjoyed the match. I thought it was great. Something that I've been taught when I've been training is less is more. And I hear this all the time from veterans and the older guys in the business who know so much. And they will say to me, yeah, just let it breathe, just relax. And less is more, less is more, less is more. And this was the finest example of less is more that I've seen in a wrestling match for a long time, actually. Simply put, Coly Corino, a lot smaller than George South in terms of stature. And George South, obviously playing a heel, keeps going back to the claw. Simple offense. You know, strikes. And I like the fact that when he put him in a headlock, it wasn't just, oh, I'll put you in a headlock and then we're immediately going to the international. No, it was a case of, actually, we're going to put you in a headlock and I'm going to demonstrate the fact that I can just stand here and hold you at it because I've got you. I've got you exactly where I want. And that's great because a headlock might seem so simple to so many people, but the headlock is so important. It's one of the most basic and yet crucial backbone moves of any wrestling match. It's the control of your opponent. And here he is just holding it. And saying, yeah, I've got control of him. You know, I don't need to immediately whip off the ropes or let him run off the ropes and sling me off and hit me with a back elbow or whatever, or do a leapfrog. Don't get me wrong, those spots are cool as well. The international spot's great, but you should sell the fact that you got this guy in a headlock. The idea of NWA is very cool because they're still using that old school mentality of letting things breathe and presenting it as a much more realistic fight, which, you know, I don't want to come across all cornet, but a lot of wrestling today doesn't present itself that way. It's very evident that it's not realistic, and that's fine, that's great. It's a soap opera, and I watch so much wrestling, it's unreal. And the great thing about wrestling is we have the opportunity to watch so many different things, and we have so much content to get our teeth into. And if we don't like something, we can ultimately change channels and check out something else, and that's pretty cool in itself. I like this match. Coly Corino gets the win. That's obviously... I mean, I felt like he probably needed it a lot more than George South, to be honest. I like the match. I love the story told. Love the simplicity of it. Simple, 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 and highly effective. Really enjoyed it. Absolutely. Like I say, less is more. Like the fact he kept going back to the claw. And like I said, I saw people on social media, oh, he keeps using the claw. Oh, this is boring. If you're in a boxing match and you have a devastating right hook, and every time you hit somebody with a right hook, it causes damage, or it knocks your opponent back, and it seems to be working for you, you're not going to immediately then try your left jab more, are you? You're going to continue to use what brought you to the dance. And I like that. I like the simple storytelling of, it worked, so why not go back to it? Very simple. Very simple. Less is more. And told a great story. Liked it. Really, really liked it. So I'm curious to see. To be honest, I'd be very happy seeing both these guys in NWA. Coly Corino has got a lot to offer, especially being so young as well and having that name and that tradition and taking after his own man, but also having his own identity. But George South as well. A guy like that is going to give you so much value in a locker room, I'd imagine. The things you can learn off of George South. I mean, I'd love to have both guys on the podcast, but especially George South, because you can imagine the stories and the incredible knowledge he'd be able to impart on you just from talking to him over Skype or on a podcast or whatever. Never mind being in a locker room. And that stuff is invaluable in this day and age. And it feels like so many wrestlers and so many people have forgotten about that stuff. And then in episode 3, we got the women's match, which was refreshing because this is the first time we've seen the opportunity afforded to women's wrestlers. And obviously, anyone who listens to the Wrestle Plug, anyone who listens to myself and my co-host, we're really passionate about women's wrestling. We want it to thrive. We want it to be on a great pedestal. We had Freya the Slayer versus Dani Jordyn. It's like the original Mean Girl kind of gimmick. From the promos, it was very evident that one woman was far more confident in her character or not. I'm going to try and be positive about it. I don't want to be a shit-eating smark about things, but it was very evident that Freya the Slayer could get up, like the ring gear, looked good, but it was very evident that she was very much behind Dani Jordyn in terms of her confidence and what she delivered. And I think Jordyn's got a much tighter gimmick, much more exciting gimmick, obviously, much more entertaining. But with Freya the Slayer being so huge in comparison, size difference, I found the match a little bit jarring. Now, just my personal opinion, I thought it was a little bit sloppy. There was definitely a lot of room for improvement. It wasn't terrible by any means, but I didn't like the way that the leg was sold. I get why a smaller athlete would go after the leg. That's fine. And there's nothing wrong with the fundamentals of these women, obviously. They're very accomplished wrestlers. During the promos, of course, Freya the Slayer neglected to tell us what her name was. Luckily, post-production and graphics and that will help no end. But yeah, from a promo standpoint, if nobody knows who you are, probably best if you let us know at least who you are coming out. Or that could easily be rectified by Dave Marquez just telling us who you are. But hey, this is part of the business, part of the game, and it's ultimately, I imagine, part of the process of working out in front of an audience and leaving it up to you, which is kind of cool. Back to the match, sorry, bit of a tangent. I thought it was sloppy, and I know this will probably cop me a little bit of heat or abuse from certain people, but especially on social media, you know how it is. But I didn't think this was a very good representation of women's wrestling, at least not for me. I have no doubt that these women are very good, and I thought that Dani Jordyn certainly looked better and more accomplished, not only in ring. It's very difficult when you have such a size difference. Freya the Slayer looked very awkward in the ring, at least from what I could tell. Little things that I nitpick at, and I guess this comes down to me just being very autistic and very over analysis wise when it comes to this. But I noticed at one point she's selling her right leg, and she was pulling herself up on the ropes and then bared all her weight on the leg that she was selling the injury to stand up. And that doesn't really make any sense to me. I know that's a little thing, but it's the little things that make wrestling great. And for me, I just thought, oh, that's really annoying. And then the finish of the match wasn't really to my liking. I get the whole trope of adrenaline kicking in and that being what overcomes the pain of an injury, but she had literally gone for the finishing move, which was that kind of scoop slam driver, and like 30 seconds later, after she collapsed trying to attempt it, she then just hits it pretty much out of nowhere with at least a little bit of effort and struggle. Just a bit jarring to me, and I imagine if push came to shove, and I'm sure if either woman was listening to this, they'd probably say, well, go fuck yourself, you're just a smark on social media or YouTube, and that's fine, I understand that, but I'd imagine that if they were given the opportunity or another go of it, they'd probably do something a bit more different, a bit more exciting. I agree with Alison Kay. I like the idea of the monster, the huge woman, the powerhouse, being the underdog for a lot of the story, but that didn't really come across that well to me, at least from my perspective. Obviously, it's one man's opinion, but I must admit, I am thrilled to see women on this product, and I think it's very important that they push forward and have more women on it. I thought it was a great idea having the wrestlers as well as the fans analysing this show. I thought that was very cool, particularly, obviously, Eli Drake and Sienna/Alison Kay are so accomplished and so good at what they do. They very much are the cream of the crop when it comes to, how to present yourself, a gimmick, your promotion, your confidence, your abilities, and their advice is going to be invaluable as opposed to my, whatever it might be, snarky opinions on YouTube. And I think they should have more of that going forward. Really want to see more and more of the professionals having their say. Because, yeah, it's like watching America's Got Talent or American Idol or Britain's Got Talent, whatever. If you're watching those shows and they're being judged by just normal people like us, random people who aren't in a business, so to speak, that's great for a certain extent, but you want to know what professionals think. You know, if I'm watching any level of professional sport, whether that be American football, soccer, as you know, Americans like to call it over here, and you know, any worldwide sport, when you watch it on TV, for instance, they have professionals or people who are used to be managers or players, whatever that might be, analysing the sport. You wouldn't just have Jim from the pub sitting there going, yeah, well, I thought Lampard was terrible, to be honest. It would be entertaining, but it needs to be tempered with the fact that you need to have people there who truly understand the business and have done it themselves, because like anything in life, it carries so much more cadence and so much more credibility if your opinions are being directed towards you, with the program you're watching, if those opinions are being directed to you from somebody who's already been there and done that. And that would apply to anything. You know, if you're at work, you want your manager to completely understand the job that you do. And it is obviously far more beneficial if that manager has done the job themselves, because then they can actually speak to you with the appropriate cadence and respect, as opposed to just talking out their ass. Which is what I've been doing, basically, for the last 20 minutes. So, you know, take it at face value. But, hey, if you did watch Circle Squared and you have any opinions of your own, leave them in the comments below. Let us know what you thought of the shows. I enjoy the format. I really do. I really like it. Thought it was a much bigger hit than the first one. And I like the fact they did back-to-back episodes as well. And I'm looking forward to NWA Power coming back next week. It would be really cool, actually, to have this as a pre-show to NWA Power, just to get people warmed up, get people involved. But love the interaction. Love the fact that this is something that's really, you know, it feels like they're really giving something back to the fans. This isn't like Taboo Tuesday or Cyber Sunday, where they're just throwing out some horse shit pay-per-view and claiming that, oh yeah, if you vote on this, you'll definitely have a say as to what match these guys have. Come on. We're not that stupid. With NWA, there's a lot of transparency, and they're not insulting their fan base, and I really dig that, and I really admire that. And also, hey, who can complain about free wrestling? Just like these opinions are free on YouTube, you can watch NWA anytime you want for free. So, like I say, any opinions of your own, leave them in the comments below. And ultimately, if you enjoyed the content, make sure you like, subscribe, all the nonsense that you'd expect from a YouTube channel. And thanks for listening. But yeah, great stuff, NWA. Really enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to more of it.